This is Jasper.
And this is Randy. We're going to start with a little Wild Wild West.
So, this is from 1999. The two best special agents in the Wild West must save President Grant from the clutches of a diabolical, wheelchair-bound, steampunk-savvy Confederate scientist bent on revenge for losing the Civil War. Stars Will Smith as James West, Kevin Kline as Artemis Gordon, Kenneth Branagh as Dr. Alice Lovelace, Salma Hayek as Rita Escobar, and M.
Emmett Walsh?
Yeah, Emmett Walsh as Coleman, and Ted Levine as General Bloodbath McGrath, and Musetta Vander as Munitia.
So I have just two notes I want to add real quick since you went through the cast. Salma Hayek as Woman, and Ted Levine as Goodbye Horses. Okay, sorry, continue.
Director is Barry Sonnenfeld, excuse me. Writers is Jim Thomas and John Thomas.
Really interesting. Okay, I have a whole bunch of different. Hold on, let me fold. So I am on, as usual, the moviedb.org looking at the same movie, and they have different screenplay credits. Let me see here.
Yeah, do you have S.S. Wilson, Brent Maddock, Jeffrey Price, and Peter S. Seaman?
Yes. That's probably it's big Hollywood movie. It's probably one of those where it started with a screenplay and then they just passed it around. Do a pass on this. Make it better. Fix this. And then you end up with this movie. Jasper, I want you to go first.
Yes.
Had you seen this before? And what are your initial impressions?
Okay, so I have seen this movie multiple times before. This was a big movie when we were kids. As a kid, this movie was really good. As an adult, I could see where this is pretty well down there.
Jasper, I do want to say, because last episode I noticed a little bit of you softening on something that you really liked because I had a lot of bad things to say.
No.
If you love this movie, I want you just to portray every bit of that love with conviction, regardless of what I say.
Let me say this. And I was thinking about this week at work, okay? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to bring this to you, okay? I think, in a way, side tangent for the podcast here.
Oh, God.
Side tangent. I think that the way, and we need to embrace this, I review movies as an entertainment. Mm-hmm. I would almost say, and I hate to say this because I always hate saying mainstream, but I feel like I'm like the mainstream viewer of a movie, and I see it for entertainment. You, thank God, see it as the art it is.
Or isn't.
Okay. Or isn't. I was going to let you jump in and say that.
Uh-huh. Oh, thank you.
And I think we need to
embrace that fact.
I think we need to embrace that fact.
No, I mean, I think you are 100% right. You are, you've liked movies that I don't think are generally that popular with mainstream audiences, but you are much more the mainstream audience than me. I am more I do like an art house movie within reason. I love me some horror movies. If a movie's got a weird or depressing ending, I'm good with it, where a lot of people will be like, well, that sucked. But that said, I do also appreciate popcorn flicks and stuff, just something for entertainment value. And as I've gotten older, I've been less pretentious, more forgiving of popcorn flicks. So,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think you're wrong. You're right. We should embrace it. That is the strength of this show.
Yes.
Because if we both just agreed all the time, it'd be boring.
And then my thing, though, is I've learned through this podcast that I want to learn more about the art behind it, behind like how do they film it? How are these stunts done? How is this set piece made? Like when we did the monster movies, like all those monsters, I was like, I really want to know how they made that,
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so with Wild Wild West, so when I was a kid, I loved this movie because it was entertaining. It was funny. The only thing I think that I really like about this movie is the guy that played Loveless, because he is just so out there,
Mm-hmm.
But the thing I cannot get over this movie, and it makes me want to give it a 2 in a later, but that's not my rating, That freaking part where McGrath turns his earpiece thing down.
Oh God, it made me like actually gag.
And I was like, why is that even in there? Like
in the nasty like wax.
ah!
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, so gross, so gross. And so early in the movie, I was like, oh, this is what we're getting into.
Yeah. But I seen this movie as a child. But as an adult now, there's like some jokes that didn't hit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, wow, this is really horrid. But as an entertainment to pass the time, this movie is good. What'd you say is, well, I'm guessing that's the definition of a popcorn flick. Just something to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Something being a popcorn flick doesn't make it bad. There are great popcorn flicks. It kind of comes down to, I guess, what the motivation of the movie itself is, like what its purpose, other than to sell tickets. But that's a big, it's a popcorn flick. It's to sell tickets of popcorn. You go watch it, eat some popcorn, have a good time. So I'm pretty sure this was my first viewing of Wild Wild West. And I realized I was pretty negative about the movie before I'd watched it. But I had seen a lot about this movie. I'd seen a lot of the scenes, but I don't think I'd ever actually watched the whole thing all the way through. So this is my first viewing of it. I didn't really like it. I didn't really like it. I don't know. My expectations of going into it were weird because I was like, I don't think I'm going to like this, but I'll give it a shot. Now, that said, I think there's some very interesting stuff in this. Of course, this is a big, expensive blockbuster movie, but I loved the special effects. I thought the effects were awesome. I like the steampunk aesthetic. I like that whole thing. And it's hard to find information about this movie because I believe it bombed, but it's so generally just, I know you like it. I know apparently everybody in the Grawlix Lunchbox live chat that we did the other day, we mentioned this movie. They all love this movie apparently. And I have a suspicion that has to do with age when it came out. You were probably like right about the perfect age for this just like some kind of cool looking silliness with some jokes. And then it's going to hit your nostalgia bone. I was a little bit older. In 1999, I was in prime, like snobby kind of like movie viewing age for me. So I was like, I'm not gonna watch that. But my point is, with it generally being so disliked, people don't write articles about it unless it's here's what sucked about it. Because after I watched this, I was like, I want to find out how they did these effects. I want to know more about the visual effects because they looked great. And there's stuff in it that I was like, was that a miniature? Was that CG? Like, how much CG did they do in this? I mean, it's 1999. They were doing CG, but there were a lot of shots in this where I couldn't tell if it was CG, which meant that's a pretty good CG. But that big spider, that was like all CG. And that's pretty impressive to me. Now, that's not to say I couldn't tell they weren't effect shots because I could, because it had in 1999, even though apparently the CG on steampunk looking spiders was pretty good. Compositing was not great. They definitely improved compositing techniques. Anytime Will Smith or Kevin Kline are composited against a background, you can tell because they have like that soft kind of blur around them. It's not like a super defined outline where they've been green screened in, but they used kind of this blur technique to kind of smooth the edges, and it's kind of a dead giveaway. So I would say my favorite thing about this movie was definitely the effects. Pretty cool effects. Where this movie kind of sucks though, is the script is real bad. The story's just kind of weak. Like it just starts and it's just stuff happening, which is fine, but like it's the typical kind of blockbuster action-y type plot, except without any real hooks to it. It's just like, here's the characters. It's not even like this is the serious one, this is the funny one. It's kind of, they kind of tried to make Will Smith the serious one and Kevin Kline the funny one, but that would also flip at other times. And so they felt confusing in that way, not super consistent. Although I guess I do appreciate Will Smith trying to play the straight man as opposed to like, he's still just Will Smith, but the Will Smith character.
Was MIB after this movie?
No, this was I think just before or just after.
Because there's like some points where like you're saying he's playing like the straight, guns agent guy. And then there's those moments where he does like the Will Smith stuff, like kind of look like he's about to fight somebody or something. Like he does that kind of like wavering around type thing.
No, so this was 1 year after Men in Black. Will Smith, like this is when Will Smith just skyrocketed. He came out of, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He had 3 big summer blockbusters in a row. So I want to say 95, he did Enemy of the State, which did very well. And then 96, Independence Day, which was massive. And then 97, Men in Black, which was huge. So like, yeah, superstar. And then he passed on the opportunity to do The Matrix so he could do Wild Wild West. Not the best decision.
Yeah. Although in turn, I think Keanu was better Neo, or I would have been a better Neo either way.
Whoa.
But
I don't know. But what if Will Smith? I can't even do a Will Smith impression, and if I did, it'd probably sound wrong. So,
yeah,
Will Smith could know kung fu. Like, hey, robots, welcome to Earth. Neo, that doesn't make sense. Whoa.
like like he does like he goes huh a lot. Like
yeah.
Like, it would be like that scene where he stops and he goes upgrades. He'd be like upgrades.
He'd just be he'd be yelling all of his lines. He'd be like,
yeah.
Picture, if you will, a world where Will Smith is Neo. But you know what?
Right, you have a blue pill. That one Will Smith was
Will Smith and Keanu both still very famous and very rich, so I think they're both okay. One of the things I did come across when I was looking up information about this movie was basically there was script issues. Will Smith come to this movie and Kevin Kline come to this movie, and they both wanted to be the straight man. For whatever reason, Will Smith is like, I don't want to be like the comedic character. I want to be the serious straight man. Obviously, between the two, Kevin Kline got shoehorned more into the goofy role, as evident by that god-awful scene where he's doing like the whoa kung fu moves and then presses the button. It's bad thing. I don't know. Beyond that, though, like, the script's not great. Like, Selma Hayek's character, why is she there? She serves zero purpose. She's just there to be woman. They don't have to save her, so I guess at least it's not necessarily woman in peril, although I think she does get abducted at some point. And she's like a fake love interest. They even do it. This movie's quote-unquote twist. Sorry, spoilers. It turns out she's married.
Mm-hmm.
She told him that she wanted to go with them because they had kidnapped her father, who you don't ever even see, but it turns out to be her husband. It's like, who cares? Who cares? Like, I don't know. Why is she here? And then my big issue with this is I'm not a big fan of like sex comedy, particularly like bad sex comedy where it's just, not to say I'm not above like some raunchy jokes and stuff, but the jokes in this movie are 100% lame, kind of juvenile sexual humor and racist humor. It's not even racist humor. It's like somebody being racist, and that's funny. Or like that's the humor. And that's kind of my issue is like, you can just feel that there's no soul anywhere in this movie.
Right.
There's no soul, Jasper. It's not pretentious. There's just no soul.
There's not a lot going on if you really, really, really look at it. It's just for entertainment. It's like, I would put it on the level of like a YouTube video of kind of passing the time,
Sure. I'm not the biggest Will Smith fan. I think he's fine. I'm not the biggest Will Smith fan, though, especially at this point in time because I think he's a good actor, but most of the time he's just doing Will Smith. And even though he wanted to play the straight man in this, he's still just kind of doing Will Smith. And his way of delivering lines by just yelling. So towards the end, they've got this little flying contraption, and Kevin Kline's like, we're just not getting enough speed. And so he turns to like veer off a cliff, and I was like, cue the Will Smith scream. Wait for it. It goes over the cliff. Will Smith scream. Just that certain Will Smith sound.
Yeah.
I seen it coming. Everything about it is very formulaic.
My favorite thing of Will Smith in this was when he goes, that's a man's head. Like he just kept saying
Dude,
it
I will
those
agree.
words.
I think he said it a couple, one, two, or two too many times. We get it, but I did like that scene because that is an
Mhm.
appropriate response, and that is a weird thing. That is a weird thing the dude's got set up.
Right.
The look of the movie's pretty cool. It's not the most dynamic in the way it's filmed, but the set, it's super vibrant, and the effects and some of the props are pretty cool. This is basically a live action cartoon.
Hmm.
That becomes so evident when Will Smith is fighting this random like Western steampunk squad in the spider towards the end, where the one dude's got like a spike through his head, the one guy has like the metal top of his head, the other guy has a knife hand.
Hmm.
I was like, what? Those are straight up like those are comic book characters. Those are cartoon characters. What are these things? They're weird Frankensteins and stuff. I kind of appreciated that, but that scene itself also presents kind of why I hate the writing of this. So he pushes the one guy out the window and he says, "Knife to meet you." That's his one-liner. And then he's fighting the last guy, who's a big guy with like the metal kind of chrome dome thing going on. And the big guy's about to push him out, and then he just like short circuits and falls out for no reason. Like Will Smith didn't do anything to him. Nobody attacked him from behind. This guy wasn't defeated. He just like short circuited and fell out. He defeated himself randomly at a convenient time. So I don't know. That's a good example of like the super weird potential of this movie, but at the same time, its shortcomings is in that whole scene right there.
Right.
Let's talk about Lovelace or Love Loss or whatever, Loveless, because you like that character. I like Kenneth Branagh. This whole time watching this, I was like, that's Kenneth. Just go be a Wallander, please. Stop this and go be Wallander. His and Will Smith's dialogue is so... It's just him saying racist things and Will Smith saying stuff about him being disabled. But they're not particularly good.
The only one I liked was where he's talking about a woman and he goes, "Yeah, one day they like you, one day they just cut your legs out right from under you." I was like, "Ow!"
Like, I don't mind some edgy humor, but I don't know. We got to see Will Smith's junk for half a second.
Oh, did we? I did not.
Really? Oh yeah. I'm not the only one. It's, somebody in the Lunchbox live chat kept bringing it up.
Oh my god!
But no, they're right though. They're right. It's towards the beginning when he falls out of the water tower and he stands up and the camera is like on the floor behind him between his legs looking up. Yeah.
Mhm.
Also, I love M. Emmett Walsh and he is underused, and about the only time he is in this is he's doing the like, "Oh, it's funny because he thinks those guys are gay" type thing. So, I don't know. That's pretty lame.
There's just some parts of this movie that just, oh my god, like it's horrid.
It's kind of amazing though, because I like virtually all the actors associated with this, but this movie seems so far beneath most of them. But, you know, whatever. That's me being judgmental. I do want to say, and I meant to throw this in at the beginning. So I think also when this came out, another kind of disappointment of mine is, so this is actually based on an old TV series. I'm familiar with the series because my dad loved this show. I think it ran I don't think, I know for a fact, it ran when he was a kid for a long time. And it used to get rerun on cable all the time. So he was always watching it. So I was very familiar with the show, but it was based on a television series that ran from 1965 to 1969. I guess that's not super long. And then there were 2 TV movies made afterwards called The Wild Wild West. And, you know, it's loosely similar in that it's 2 guys, 2 white guys, because it was a Western in the 60s. But 2 guys, they were Secret Service agents. And there was a kind of a sci-fi twist to it, sci-fi bent, I guess, a science fiction alternate history type thing. But it wasn't anywhere as extreme as what they do in this movie.
Right.
So I was familiar with that. And then seeing what I saw of this movie when it came out, I don't know if it was trailers or what, but I was just like, that's not this. It's not like this show was super popular in 1999. It's such a weird property to mine. But, you know, whatever. It was probably some producer or the director or somebody had a love for the show, when they were a kid, like my dad did, and was like, I want to make this movie. But yeah, that's what the movie is loosely based on, is Western TV series.
What's his name? Robert Conrad, who was in the original, of course, hated this movie. When this movie swept the 20th annual Razzie Awards,
Yep.
winning 5 statuettes, including Worst Picture, Robert Conrad, who played James West in the original 1960s television series, accepted 3 of the awards in person.
Which is great. I believe at some point, I don't know when, but Will Smith actually apologized to him for doing the movie.
And they also said Mel Gibson was supposed to be James West, which would have been just kind of weird.
Well, then what kind of insults would the villain hurl at him then? Because
I don't know.
Apparently nobody would know what to say to this guy if he wasn't black, because that's all the bad guys ever pointed to was, you're black, I'm going to say a racist thing. I get it's the West, but you know what? It's not, because the West didn't really have giant steampunk spiders and dudes with Frankenstein metal skull caps, so...
Right.
Also, that Will Smith song at the end is terrible. It's so bad. It's so bad. He's such a shill, but whatever. He's an actor. It was a job. According to Wikipedia, the movie was produced on a $170 million budget. Now, keep in mind that's the budget of the production and probably does not include massive promotional budget, because this movie, it was their big blockbuster. Like, it was supposed to be their big blockbuster. I remember this movie getting advertised to no end. It had the Burger King or McDonald's, probably McDonald's tie-in toys and junk, just tons of advertising. In the US, it made $113.8 million and then $108.3 million overseas, so it brought in $222 million. Yeah, with whatever they spent on promotion, they probably still were in the negative on this one.
Like they said, the reason why this movie sold was that kids were buying tickets to this one and then sneaking into the South Park movie and the American Pie when they came out.
Oh, God, that really puts a snapshot of when this movie hit theaters.
Right.
Yeah, I went and saw American Pie. I regretted that one, too. But I don't know if I'd have regretted it. I probably would have rather watched this than American Pie. I hate American Pie with a passion. Let's do ratings on this bad boy.
Okay, you first.
To be honest, I was a little torn. I almost went 2 stars on this. I almost went 2 stars because the effects are awesome. And it was a couple days before I actually even put my rating into Letterboxd because I was mulling it over. But then the more I thought about just the dialogue and the script and just the movie in general, because I think there's some entertainment to be had.
Mm.
But there are so many moments where I was like, oh, just don't do this. So I'm settling on 1.5 stars. 1.5. It's a rating that hurts Jasper's heart.
It does.
How about you, Jasper? How's this a 4-star?
I'm getting a solid 3.
I expected higher.
No, 3. It's like I said, I liked this movie when I was younger, but now watching it as an adult, because probably the last time I watched this movie I was probably 14. There's just some really, but would I watch this movie again? Probably yes. But 3.
You know, I may not enjoy it, but I would not be opposed to watching this again someday. For the right reason, I don't know what that reason would be. Weirdly enough, even though I give it 1.5, I think I could watch it again. At least parts of it. There's some interesting stuff. There's enough cool eye candy that I think I could sit through most of it again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It moves fast. I'll give it that. Like, it doesn't lull. It moves. So, and that's how the West was lost.